can mess up, and your dad, will, you can call him, and which is what God promised for his children Israel. Not that he didn't faithfully punish them, but because of that relationship, it says there in verse 9, in their affliction, I was afflicted. All their affliction, he was afflicted. See, this is them acknowledging this. And the angel of his presence saved them. In his love and in his pity, he redeemed them, and he bore them and carried them all the days of old. You can read about it in the Old Testament. God chose to have this intimate relationship with them in spite of them, to where he bore them through their continual transgressions. Now, I can relate to this in a way, because I had a good dad growing up. He wasn't perfect, but he took care of his children. But I never appreciated it. In fact, I rebelled and made my parents' lives miserable as much as I could. But they never stopped loving me with parental love. They're always there, even though I remember one time my dad I'm getting home from playing in a rock band in a bar. I was wearing the leopard skin spandex pants and a polka dot shirt. I'm sure you can picture that. My hair was about that big. I'm coming home, he's going out to go to work, and he's just like, he gave me a riot act. He's like, just laid it out on me. I should have, I'm like wasted and just coming home, partying. But, they bailed me out of a lot of my stupidity, and when my, so-called friends ditched me, my parents would let me come home. They were always there. I was thankful that I got saved before they died, so I could say, thank you, I'm so sorry that I was such a jerk, and express remorse. That's similar to the idea here. God did everything for Israel, including punishing. They were never thankful for it. His angel of his presence saved them. And they just went off into idolatry. In his love and in his pity, verse 9 says, he redeemed them. He bore them around all the days of old. And like I said, read about it in your Old Testament. God did everything for them, including punishing them for their own ultimate good. They rebelled, verse 10 says, and grieved his Holy Spirit. So he turned himself against them as an enemy, and he fought against them. That's describing how God brought chastisement upon his children. He didn't fight against them directly, but he allowed their own enemies to do that. Something you can read about in the history books, specifically the Kings and Chronicles. It says in verse 11, then he remembered the days of old, Moses and his people, saying, where is he who brought them out of the sea with the shepherd of his flock? Where is he who put his Holy Spirit within them, who led them by the right hand of Moses with his glorious arm, dividing the water before them to make for himself an everlasting name, who led them through the deep as a horse in the wilderness, that they might not slumber? So in that state of being punished by God through the use of their enemies, they were forced to think things through. And this is how they would think in the Babylonian captivity, in the times where God punished them with their enemies. You notice the pronoun in verse 11. It's not capitalized, where it says, then he remembered. That he is speaking of Israel. It's speaking of them remembering the days of old.